Hello, greetings, Boruto Naruto fans, and today I get the special privilege to inform you guys that Boruto chapter 25 called These Girls, Those Girls has dropped, and I will be talking about it in detail in this video. So last chapter, we saw the conclusion of the legendary fight in the sand. We saw that Boruto came clutch, Sarada came clutch, Kawaki came clutch, Jorah showing out, Konohamaru doing what he can, and we got Moegi's Thornbulb Soul and Shinki's Thornbulb Soul. Or, yes, Shinki's Thornbulb. Let's get into the chapter. This chapter starts off with Konohamaru Sensei and Team 10 at Moegi's tree to free her from her grasp. She gets freed. Konohamaru hugs her in her arms, and we see that Boruto is watching this from afar. He's flying around the Leaf Village because he is still a wanted ninja, but he's able to take in these moments from afar with his Otsutsuki flying ability. The next scene, we see that the village hidden in the sand, Gaara's status. We see Gaara's status in this next panel page, and we see when we learn that Kankuro informs Shikamaru that Gaara's gonna be okay, because almost like 10 chapters, a handful of chapters, we saw that Gaara was fighting the Moegi Shinju clone, and he got critically injured in that battle. And we learned that Shinki also has been restored with the Thornbulb, and also in this panel, Sai informs that the elders want to talk to Shikamaru. Now, this is gonna most likely be on Boruto's status of being a rogue ninja, because the elders want Boruto gone, because he did kill, quotations, Naruto. So that's pretty interesting. We see this is the only panel we get in this chapter regarding that. So hopefully in the next chapter we learn a lot more of that. The next scene, we see that Sakura, with her medical ninja prowess, is assessing Moegi's condition. And we see that Konohamaru's with her, Sakura, Sarada, Sumire, Chocho, and Himawari are all concerned about Moegi's health. And Sarada looks at Sumire, and she's ready to talk to her about her feelings that she's been suppressing of Boruto. So she asks her if she has a minute, so they step outside. Now, what goes on outside? We see that the panels show that there's a feeling of, there's some tension here, there's some awkward tension here, and then Sarada starts to spill her heart out on her feelings of Boruto, but she initially starts to call Sumire of her name Sumire. All this time since they've known each other, she always has called her class rep, because she was the class rep back in the academy days. So that was a nickname that Sarada always called Sumire, because they've known each other for so long. But right now she wants to respect her because they have grown, and she calls her by her name, Sumire. So that's interesting to see here. And we see that Ada is watching with her clairvoyance eye, and she's locked into this scene because feelings and emotions, especially with people like Boruto, and she has grown to be sort of close with these girls because they did have a mission back in Boruto Part 1 where they got close and they sort of were close-knit friends because they were the only girls really around that she could talk to. So in this scene, we see that Sarada goes on to talk about how she felt, and then she realizes that she's been suppressing this feeling and this worry about Boruto, and she acknowledges that it may have clouded her judgment of her being Hokage and her wanting to become a Hokage. And Sarada accepts this, and Sumire accepts this. They come to a mutual agreement that, hey, we both feel the same way about this particular person, Boruto Uzumaki, or just Boruto, and we're not going to hide each other's feelings anymore from now on. So we see sort of some closure with their relationship and their tension sort of being quelled at this point. And we see that Ada is sort of concerned that they're having this conversation without her, and she calls the sensory unit to connect them telepathically so they can talk. But that's cut off there. The next scene we see is probably one of the more interesting, intriguing parts of the chapter. We see that Himawari is in the Uzumaki household. To refresh you guys' memory, Himawari is the only one in this household because Naruto's gone, Hinata's gone, and Boruto is a rogue ninja. He cannot be in the Hidden Leaf Village. So she decides to live in the house alone without any assistance. And we see that she's sitting on a couch meditating. She's meditating, but inside her mind, her soul, her chakra, she's fighting a young Kuruma. She's fighting Kuruma in the Kurama chakra room where Naruto had when he was talking to Kurama when they had all that beef and stuff. So she's fighting. This is so cool because she's able to train in this mental meditation state, and she's learning from Kurama, young Kurama. And in this we learn that Himawari has special ability because of her genes and her compatibility with Kurama. She's not an ordinary shinobi, is what he's saying in here. And the way that she needs to fight is with chakra, not physical ability. Much like in Star Wars, where you want to use more force than her physical ability. This makes me feel like I've been watching a lot of Star Wars. This makes me feel like I'm watching like some Yoda-ish. And we see that Boruto's watching this conversation, or this sort of happening. He's stalking her little sister, making sure she's okay. And we see a little smile from Boruto. We don't get that often in the time skip. And we see another interesting part of this chapter where we see Momoshiki for the first time into Blue Vortex. Now, previously I've sort of speculated that the next time we see Momoshiki would be something terrible will happen, but this is not the case. This is just a casual meeting of Boruto and Momoshiki. But we see that Momoshiki's resolve is gone. Momoshiki is at the point where he's ready to just pass away. He can no longer resurrect in Boruto's body. So at this point, he's like, I just can't wait for you to die. That's all I'm here for, because he's stuck in this state where he's sort of a medium. He's just living in Boruto's conscious and he has nothing really to do. So Boruto comes to him to ask him a favor, and that's to lend him his power. Now, Momoshiki is not someone to lend him his power. He doesn't want him to live. He wants him to die. But we see that Boruto has some type of plan, some type of compensation stated in the chapter for Momoshiki if he does lend him his power. He needs to take down Jura, so he's wanting him to lend him this power. And he says that he can have everything he wants. Now, does that mean that Boruto will kill himself? Because that's what Momoshiki wants. Or maybe he has some other plan to surrender himself completely to Momoshiki. This is a lot of can be speculated from this statement from Boruto, very rash statement to a menace like Momoshiki. And after this, the chapter ends. Now it's time for the final verdict of this chapter, how I feel this chapter was in comparison to the other Peak Fiction chapters. This chapter doesn't have much action. It has action of HIMAWARI and fighting KURUMA, which is cool. This chapter is a direct follow-up to an end of an arc, essentially, or a resolution of the arc. We see the events of everything unfolding in conclusion to the last arc, and I think it's pretty good. I think all of it's good. None of it's crazy, but there's also elements in this chapter that sort of pushes the narrative, makes the reader think more about what's going to happen next. And that's mainly going to be with HIMAWARI and Boruto. HIMAWARI in this case with KURUMA, Boruto in this case with Momoshiki, and Shikamaru in this case of what is the elders gonna want, because the elders are gonna want to do something, gonna want to push like some type of sanctions or punishment for Boruto, or maybe they're gonna learn that Boruto was a critical part in this chapter. So this was an above average chapter, I would say. This chapter, I would give this chapter a 7. There was nothing that I didn't like about this chapter. This chapter isn't crazy, but what this chapter does is sort of leans us more so into the next, transitional chapter. This is a transitional chapter, and what it's building up is going to be interesting. So I'll give this chapter a 7. It's not a crazy chapter. I could give it an 8, maybe a 9, but I feel like there's a lot in this chapter that we sort of know that Sarada has these feelings, but it's cool to see that her and Sumire can finally come to an agreement in this case. So that's my verdict. Now in this section, I'm going to talk about my predictions, more of a breakdown of the more interesting parts of this chapter, and my predictions or power scaling of what's going to happen next. So let's first off talk about the elders, what Shikamaru is going to have to deal with. So Shikamaru is going to have to break it to the elders that Boruto was a critical part of the success of the Hidden Leaf and this mission. So the reaction to this is going to be very controversial, because the elders know that, or they don't know that, Naruto's actually alive. But they what they do know is that he was framed, and they think that Boruto killed Naruto. So there's going to be an internal conflict within the Leaf elders of how they're going to feel and what they're going to do next. And more so, they're going to be more hard on Boruto. And Shikamaru is going to have to find a way to plead in his favor to keep his job, basically. So that's going to be interesting to see how what's going to happen next in that instance. The Sumire and Sarada, I think it's pretty laid out well in this. There's nothing more deep we can get into it, but now that Sarada can accept her feelings and she can connect with Sumire, who sort of knows that she's had these feelings with Boruto, it's probably going to give her more of a power amp, because we know that from Shippuden, from my favorite Hokage of all time, and that's going to be the second Hokage, said that Uchiha loves the most, and their love give them their power. So her understanding of herself and her own feelings, that's going to unleash more power, and she wants to get more powerful so she can achieve the dream of a Hokage and to protect who she loves dear, and that's Boruto, because Boruto's going through it. So I wonder how this will bolster the relationship with Sumire and Sarada. Maybe they can have more of a 1-2 punch. Maybe we see Sumire scrapping. I don't know, but that's all I really have to say about that. And let's go to the next subject. The next thing I want to talk about is Ada's feeling towards this conversation. She watches this whole conversation takes place between Sumire and Sarada, and she has these weird feelings with Boruto too. We've seen it throughout even part 1 Boruto, where she notices Boruto's growth and maturity, and even more so in the time skip when he seemingly is just a powerhouse at this point and is more mature. We know that the bug Shinju is gonna be on her in the following chapters. So maybe this has something to do with it. Maybe she's gonna be dealing with, or she's gonna be talking to Sarada and Sumire about how she feels, and maybe that's when Bug gets into play. Maybe Bug's gonna play with something with this love thing and sort of come through her with her omnipotence abilities. I don't know. This is kind of hard to speculate in this, but that's all I really have on that take. Himawari Uchiha. She's no ordinary shinobi. She's no ordinary human being. She has the power of Kurama inside of her. She is the direct descendant, blood descendant of the Otsutsuki. So her synergy for Kurama's chakra and her powers and whatnot are going to be more attuned for her than other Jinchuriki we've ever seen in the franchise. And young Kurama points this out. She isn't just a normal person. He makes the comparison that she is way more of a tailed beast or a Jura, a harborer of this thing, someone who is closer to chakra than other people, than she is just a normal chakra user. And this could hint at Himawari being able to use in-base Biju bombs and planetary chakra things that other Jinchuriki were not able to use without really leaking or tapping into much power. You know, we see that Naruto was able to use these sort of abilities, but it's going to be on some type of amplified scale because Naruto wasn't as a perfect Jinchuriki as Himawari. So this is really just setting up Himawari becoming way more powerful with Kurama going forward, of her being able to tap into some type of untapped potential that she's gonna have. And I wanted to see what type of amp that she will bring to the table when more threats arise in this franchise or with Joro or whatnot. And to finish these discussions, my predictions is going to be Boruto and Momoshiki's conversation. Boruto has Kawaki doesn't want Boruto to exist because he is an Otsutsuki. He does have Momoshiki inside of him. So if Momoshiki comes out in any way, it's gonna be a detriment to the ninja world, because we don't know what he's gonna do, how he's gonna turn up, how he's gonna wreak havoc on everything. He seemingly, in this chapter, we don't get that vibe. We just see that Momoshiki's ready to be done with the situation that he put himself into, or they put himself into. And Boruto's gonna show that he has the leverage in this negotiation, in this deal. He has all the cards right now. Momoshiki doesn't have any cards, and Boruto's gonna give him a couple cards that he can play with, in the condition that Boruto is able to utilize his power. So, are we gonna see sort of a Naruto and Kurama type deal? I don't think so. This is a totally different situation. I think is Momoshiki gonna somehow just be a Jinchuriki basically in this? I don't see how the writers would choose to do this. Ikimori would choose to do this, because we've already seen this before with Naruto, and we currently already have this going on with HIMAWARI, unless young Kurama is going to turn evil and Momoshiki's going to turn good, or something's going to happen. So Momoshiki is the villain, Kurama is not the villain. So Momoshiki is going to need a lot more convincing in this case, for someone that he doesn't really care about to utilize his power. So I'm excited. I always wanted Boruto to have Momoshiki's hands, him able to absorb anything. I don't know how that would work with someone like a Jura, where his physical attributes is just way off the table. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what we have going on with this Boruto and Momoshiki dynamic. Is he gonna get so much power that Jura will just stand no match? Would this Momoshiki amp put him in that place where he can solo Jura, or would he still need the helps of like Kawaki? That's gonna be very interesting to see, because we see that Kawaki was able to basically handle Jura, even though Jura didn't really die. Kawaki was physically brutalizing him, and it was to the case where Jura was just had the durability to take everything. So will Momoshiki give Boruto the raw power, even though Boruto already has the hacks? So would Momoshiki give him more hacks or more physical raw power? That's going to be something very interesting to see in the next coming chapters. But that's really all I wanted to break down in this chapter. Let me know if I missed something. Let me know if I said something that you don't like, or am I tripping about my takes? And I will talk about the next chapter next month. And stay tuned.